Okay, hi everyone. My name is Shannon Healy, and I decided to do my informative speech on the history of ice cream. Like I said last week, I just thought this would be a nice, lighthearted, fun speech to do in such a weird time right now. But okay, let's just get started. It's hard to know when the idea of ice cream first became a thing because it's so long ago, so no one was really keeping an exact record of it. But the first ones I found were Alexander the Great. He loved to take snow and flavor it with honey and nectar and eat it. And then also during the Roman Empire, Nero, Claudius Caesar also took snow and flavored it with fruits and other juices. So these aren't obviously exactly ice cream, but these are the first incidences of people starting to want to eat like a small frozen dessert flavored with other things. And then 1,000 years after that, Marco Polo went on an expedition, and when he came back, he returned to Italy, and he came back with a recipe that's similar to today's sherbet. So they went from like flavoring snow to a sherbet similar recipe as it is today, and then from that they modified it to ice cream. So then in the 1500s is when ice cream was available to only royalty. Henry II and his wife Catherine would eat this for dessert almost every night. It was their favorite dessert. And then about 100 years after that, or a little more than 100 years, in 1660, is when it first became available to the public. So for a long period of time in Europe when it started, or Italy specifically where it started, it was strictly only for royalty. And that was just interesting to me that like it took so long for the public to be able to have access to it, which makes sense when I explain like the process later on. But the first cafe in Paris that made ice cream served it, or their recipe included milk, cream, butter, and eggs. That doesn't sound like the best ice cream to me, but that's how it got started. So then getting to when it came to America, again, no one knows this exact date because no one was recording it, but the first concrete evidence that ice cream existed in America came in 1744 when someone wrote about it in a letter. They didn't call it ice cream, they actually used to call it cream ice, just flipped, so. But that was the first instance of that. And then the first advertisement for America was in 1777 by Philip Lindsay. I find this interesting too because, like I said, for the beginning of when ice cream first started, it was only available to royalty, so it was a little weird that they're campaigning it for people, but when they weren't even have access to eat it. But that's just when the first advertisement came. And then George Washington actually in 1770 or 1790, I'm sorry, spent $200 on ice cream over just the summer, which is crazy because $200 at that time is the same as $5,000 today. I'm sure it obviously was more expensive to do ice cream back then, but still that is an insane amount of money to just spend on solely ice cream. So again, like I said, ice cream was only for the richest of the rich. It wasn't available to the public in America until the 1800s. And that's then what really pioneered ice cream to be available to the public was the use of machinery. This is around the same time that machines, like not hand machines, but like mechanical and like electric machines were being able to be used. So that's what really made it available to the public. But to truly understand how impactful this machinery was, you need to understand the prior antique machine that they would use. So this is a picture of it. The way it works is in the middle here, in there is where you put your cream filling, which I don't know exactly how they used to make the cream filling. I tried to find a recipe, but I couldn't find an exact one. But I do know that on the outside here, outside that whole can, like on this end, what you do is you take ice and salt and you do layers and layers of that, so there's an equal or a lot of salt and like a lot of ice. So then after you put the cream in the middle, you take the crank on the side and you just have to hand crank it and just keep going. That you'd have to crank it for 25 to 30 minutes, which is just insane to me. I understand, like that helps you really understand why ice cream wasn't available to the public, because how many people could be doing that and like selling it to the public? Obviously when they do that, they're gonna give it to the most elite people. And actually, just like a side note from personal experience, I've been to a ice cream parlor in Connecticut actually that still uses this machine, and the ice cream is just so much better in my opinion. So if you ever have the chance to eat ice cream from an antique machine like that, I think you should totally do it. It's completely different from how it is today. But to get into machinery they use today, it's very similar to that, except for obviously it's not hand cranked. It's all mechanical. And then instead of salt and ice, they use liquid ammonia on the outside. And then as the ice cream hits the edges of the inside canister, they have a blade that circles around it to cut off the crystals, because the best, or the person who makes it said the best ice cream has the smallest crystals, so it goes around a bunch of times and cuts off those crystals as they're forming, so they stay small, and the ice cream stays as the best it could be. And then after that, they take it out and then add the candy or fruit or whatever you're adding into a cookie dough, whatever it is. And then right after that, they take it into a hardening machine so it'd keep its shape. Because if you see ice cream made from the antique machine, you could tell it's very soft. It's very it's kind of stringy. It's a lot different than it is how we know it. So they put it in the hardening machine so it keeps its shape and it doesn't melt very quickly, because otherwise it would melt very quickly. And then from this machinery, I thought this was a very interesting fact. Now the US is able to make 1.5 billion gallons of ice cream each year. It just shows how much this simple machinery has impacted everyday life and has allowed us to eat ice cream a lot more, which is great for us because I'm sure everyone loves it. But it's crazy to see. So that was just the basic history of ice cream. But now I figured I would say a few random facts about ice cream, just to end it off, and just a few random facts. The first one is the ice cream cone invention was an accident, actually. It was a man named Ernest Hamoy. I might be saying that wrong, but he was a waffle maker, and he had a neighbor who was an ice cream vendor, and his neighbor ran out of bowls to serve his ice cream in. So he took his waffle machine and made it into cones, and they started selling it that way, and it became really popular. So now we still have it to today because of this, just trying to substitute for bowls. And then this one was also interesting. During the Prohibition, or when Prohibition was being enforced, many American breweries changed to making ice cream, because instead of buying all alcohol, they turned to buying a bunch of ice cream, which I thought was just funny and interesting. And then Rocky Road ice cream was named during the Great Depression to relate to the economic hardships, which who would have thought the name behind it would have such a kind of dark meaning, but it's still a little bit of more history on it. And then lastly, in the 1920s, when immigrants came to America through Ellis Island, the first thing they would give them is an ice cream sandwich to introduce them to America and show them all the great things that we have here. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this speech, and that is just the basic history lesson of ice cream.